Imagine your perfect wedding day, a celebration of love, laughter, and a lifetime of shared memories. Now, imagine that perfect day shattering into a million pieces, not by a simple mistake, but by a secret so dark, so horrifying, it erases the groom from existence. What if the most intimate moment of your life became a public spectacle, revealing a crime that no one could have ever predicted? Stay tuned, because this story will make you question everything you thought you knew about love, family, and the shadows that lurk beneath the surface. If you find yourself captivated by this tale, please give this video a like, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The grand ballroom of the Oakwood estate shimmered under the soft glow of chandeliers. Hundreds of guests, dressed in their finest, raised champagne flutes, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. It was Sarah and Liam's wedding day, a union that seemed destined, a love story straight out of a fairy tale. Sarah, radiant in her lace gown, held Liam's hand, her smile a beacon of pure happiness. Liam, handsome and earnest, squeezed her fingers, his eyes reflecting the same joy. The reception was in full swing. The band played a lively tune, children chased each other across the polished floor, and the air was thick with the scent of roses and expensive perfume. After the toasts and the first dance, Liam, ever the romantic, announced a special surprise for his new bride. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, tapping a fork against his glass, his voice amplified by the microphone, "I have prepared a little something for my beautiful Sarah. A slideshow, a collection of our cherished memories, leading up to this incredible day." A collective murmur of awes spread through the room. A large projection screen descended from the ceiling behind the head table. Liam walked confidently to the laptop, which was connected to the projector. He had meticulously curated the photos, choosing moments from their first date, their travels, their quiet evenings at home. He clicked a button, and the screen flickered to life. The first few images were perfect. A sun-drenched selfie from their trip to Italy, a candid shot of them laughing at a picnic, a tender moment from their engagement party. Sarah watched, tears welling in her eyes, a soft smile on her lips. Then the screen glitched, a brief, almost imperceptible flicker. Liam frowned, his brow furrowing slightly. He clicked again, thinking it was a minor technical hiccup. What appeared next was not a photograph. It was a video, a grainy, poorly lit video. The laughter in the ballroom died down, replaced by a confused silence. On the screen, a figure moved in the shadows. It was Sarah. And another figure, older, larger, a man. The angles were disorienting, the movements unsettling. A gasp rippled through the crowd. A woman at a nearby table dropped her champagne glass, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Liam froze, his hand hovering over the laptop, his face, moments ago flushed with happiness, drained of all color. He stared at the screen, his eyes wide with disbelief and horror. The video continued to play, revealing more. The intimate, disturbing nature of the scene became sickeningly clear. It was Sarah, unclothed, in a compromising position, and the man with her, his face now partially visible in a fleeting moment of light, was unmistakable. It was Richard, Sarah's stepfather. A collective, horrified gasp filled the room. The band stopped playing, their instruments falling silent. The cheerful chatter vanished. Every eye was fixed on the screen, then on Sarah, then on Richard, who sat rigidly at the head table, his face a mask of stone. Sarah let out a strangled cry, a sound of pure agony. She pushed back from the table, her chair scraping loudly across the floor. Her eyes darted from the screen to Liam, then to Richard. Her face was a canvas of terror, shame, and a profound, unspeakable pain. Liam, still frozen, finally snapped. His eyes, no longer filled with love, were now blazing with a mixture of betrayal and revulsion. He stumbled backward, knocking over a flower arrangement. The laptop clattered to the floor, the screen going black. The video stopped, but the images, the horrifying truth, were seared into everyone's minds. "Liam," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling, reaching out a hand. He didn't respond. He didn't even look at her. His gaze was fixed on Richard, who remained motionless, his eyes like chips of ice. A silent, terrifying communication passed between the two men. Then, without a word, Liam turned and bolted. He pushed through the stunned crowd, past the bewildered ushers, and out of the ballroom doors. He vanished into the night. The chaos that followed was immediate and overwhelming. Sarah collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Guests whispered, some openly horrified, others trying to make sense of the unthinkable. Richard, finally, slowly rose from his seat, his gaze sweeping across the room, a chilling calmness about him. Within minutes, the police were called. Detective Miller, a veteran with tired but keen eyes, arrived with his younger, sharper partner, Detective Hayes. The scene was a mess of shattered dreams and broken trust. What exactly happened here? Detective Miller asked the frantic wedding planner, who was trying to usher guests out. The groom, Liam, he was showing a slideshow. And then this video, it was explicit, and it involved the bride and her stepfather. The planner stammered, her face pale. Then Liam just ran, we haven't seen him since. Miller nodded, his gaze sweeping the room. Hayes was already examining the laptop, carefully bagging it as evidence. We need to speak to the bride, Sarah, and her stepfather. Richard, Miller stated. Sarah was in a private room, still weeping, attended by a few close friends. Her mother, Elaine, Richard's wife, sat beside her, looking utterly devastated, her hand stroking Sarah's hair. Sarah, can you tell us what happened? Miller asked gently. Sarah looked up, her eyes red and swollen. I don't know. Liam was showing pictures. Then that video. I don't know how it got there, I swear. Her voice was barely a whisper. Do you recognize the people in the video? Hayes asked, his voice calm but firm. Sarah flinched. Was me, and Richard, my stepfather. She choked on the words. How long has this been going on? Miller pressed. Sarah shook her head violently. No, it's not like that. It was years ago. I was young. He forced me. Her voice broke. I was so ashamed. I never told anyone, never. Elaine gasped, looking at her daughter with dawning horror. Sarah, what are you saying? It's true, Mom. He did this to me. For years. I was just a child. Sarah cried, burying her face in her hands. The detectives exchanged a look. This was far more than a scandalous wedding video. This was an accusation of abuse. Next, they spoke to Richard. He sat in a separate room, composed, almost unnervingly so. Or Mr. Henderson, we need to ask you about the video that was played tonight. Miller began. Richard sighed, a picture of wary resignation. It's a terrible misunderstanding, detectives, a malicious fabrication. I have no idea where that video came from, or why it was played. Someone is trying to ruin my family. Ems Davis, your stepdaughter, claims it was you in the video, and that you abused her? Hayes interjected, watching his reaction closely. Richard's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something cold in their depths. Sarah is clearly distraught. She's confused. She's been through a lot. I've always been a loving stepfather to her. So you deny it was you in the video, and you deny any abuse? Miller clarified. Absolutely, Richard stated, his voice firm, unwavering. I deny it completely. The detectives left Richard, their minds buzzing. Sarah's raw pain seemed genuine. Richard's composure was almost too perfect. And Liam was still missing. The investigation expanded. Miller and Hayes delved into Sarah's past. They learned her father had died when she was young, and her mother, Elaine, had married Richard a few years later. Sarah had been a quiet, artistic child, often withdrawn. Friends recalled her being particularly close to her mother, but also a strange distance from Richard. They interviewed Elaine again, this time without Richard present. Elaine was torn between her husband and her daughter. I just can't believe it, she sobbed. Richard has always been so good to us. He provided everything. Sarah never said a word. Victims of abuse often don't, Mrs. Henderson, Miller said gently. They're often afraid, ashamed. Elaine's face crumpled. But why now? Why at the wedding? That was the crucial question. How did the video end up on Liam's laptop? Liam was a meticulous, organized man. It seemed impossible he would accidentally have such a file. Hayes, with his tech expertise, began to trace the video file. The laptop was old, but functional. He found remnants of the video file, even after it had been deleted. It was a very specific format, suggesting it wasn't a commercial recording. It looked like it had been recorded on an older, perhaps hidden, camera. The timestamp on the file was over 10 years old. Sarah would have been a teenager. They revisited Sarah. "Sarah, do you know anything about how that video was made?" "A camera, anything?" Miller asked. Sarah hesitated, her eyes distant. "He had a camera, a small one. He used to hide it. I didn't know he was recording me. Not then. Not until later." She shivered. "Who would threaten me? Tell me he'd show it to my mom if I ever told anyone." "Where would he keep it?" Hayes pressed. "I don't know. He had a study, a locked drawer. He was always very private about his things." The detectives obtained a warrant to search Richard's home, specifically his study. The search was thorough. They found nothing obvious, no hidden cameras, no tapes. But Hayes noticed something, a loose floorboard beneath a heavy bookshelf. It was almost imperceptible. He pried it open. Inside, wrapped in a thick, dust-covered cloth, was an old, small digital camcorder. It looked like something from the early 2000s. Hayes' heart pounded. He connected it to a portable viewer. The memory card was still inside. He scrolled through the files. There were many, most were innocuous family videos. Christmas mornings, birthday parties. Then, he found them, a series of files, labeled only with dates. He played the first one. It was the same grainy, disturbing footage that had played at the wedding. And then, a series of others, even more graphic, even more horrifying. But then, a different video began to play. This one was from a different angle. Slightly clearer, it showed Sarah, much younger, crying, struggling, and Richard, his face contorted with a chilling rage. Then, a third person entered the frame. A man. He was arguing with Richard. The argument escalated. Richard grabbed a heavy object, a brass statue from his desk. He swung it. The man fell. A sickening thud. He didn't move. Richard stood over him, breathing heavily, then began to drag the body out of the frame. Sarah was in the corner, huddled, whimpering, her eyes wide with terror. She had witnessed a murder. Miller watched, his face grim. "My God," he breathed. "That's not just abuse." And Sarah saw it all. Hayes added, his voice low. "She wasn't just a victim of abuse. She was a witness to a homicide." The plot thickened. The X-rated tape was a red herring. It was a cover for something far more sinister. The murder mentioned in the plot was not a consequence of the tape playing, but a scene on the tape itself. And Liam, what did he see? Had the escalating mystery, the detectives now had a new perspective. Liam's disappearance wasn't about shame or betrayal. It was about what he saw. He must have seen the murder, or at least enough to realize the true horror of what was on that tape. They brought Sarah back in. This time, her mother was not present. Miller placed the camcorder on the table. Sarah's eyes widened, a fresh wave of terror washing over her. "Sarah, we found this," Miller said, his voice gentle but firm. "We know what's on it. We know about the man Richard killed." Sarah burst into fresh tears, but this time they were tears of relief, of a burden finally lifted. "He told me he would kill me too if I ever told anyone. He said he'd kill my mom. He said he'd make it look like an accident." "Who was the man, Sarah?" Hayes asked. "His name was Mark Jenkins. He was a business partner of Richard's. They had a fight over money. Mark threatened to expose something Richard was doing, something illegal. Richard, he just snapped." She recounted the terrifying night, her voice trembling but gaining strength with each word. "I was hiding in the study. I saw it all. He made me swear I wouldn't tell. He made me help him clean up." She shuddered. "Had disposed of the body somewhere. I don't know where." The pieces were starting to fit. Richard wasn't just an abuser. He was a murderer and a master manipulator. The X-rated tapes were his way of controlling Sarah, ensuring her silence. He had used her trauma as leverage. But what about Liam? "Sarah, when Liam saw the video, what did you see in his eyes?" Miller asked. Horror, pure horror, Sarah whispered, and looked at Richard, and Richard looked at him. It was like they understood something terrible. Do you think Liam saw the murder part of the video? Hayes pondered. Sarah shook her head. I don't know. It was so fast, the screen glitched, but maybe he saw enough to know it wasn't just me and Richard. The detectives now had a new theory. Liam didn't just run away. He was a witness. And Richard, realizing the full extent of what had been exposed, would have acted swiftly. They put out an all-points bulletin for Liam, but also began to focus their search on Richard. They checked his phone records, his recent movements. They found a burner phone, activated just days before the wedding. It had made several calls to a remote cabin property owned by Richard, deep in the woods, several hours away. The plot twist, the team moved quickly. A tactical unit was dispatched to the cabin. The air was thick with tension. They knew Richard was dangerous. As they approached the cabin, they saw a faint light inside. They breached the door. The cabin was rustic, sparsely furnished. In the center of the main room, tied to a chair, was Liam. He was alive, but barely. His face was bruised, his eyes wide with fear. Richard was nowhere to be seen. Liam, weak but coherent, immediately spoke. He saw me looking at the laptop. He saw me trying to stop the video. He knew I saw it. The murder. He came after me. He grabbed me outside, dragged me into his car, brought me here. Miller knelt beside Liam, untying him. You're safe now, son, but that's not the twist, Liam said, his voice hoarse, his eyes fixed on Miller. It told me something terrible, he said. Sarah knew about the video. She put it there. Miller and Hayes exchanged a stunned look. What are you saying, Liam? Miller asked. He said Sarah planted the video. She wanted it to play. She wanted to expose him. She just didn't tell me about the murder part. She only told me it was a secret she needed exposed. Something about Richard abusing her. She said she'd put a damaging video in the slideshow, but she needed me to be the one to play it. She said it would look like an accident. She said it was the only way to get justice without putting herself in danger. A chilling silence descended. Sarah, the victim, was also an orchestrator. She had used Liam, her groom, as an unwitting pawn in her desperate plan for revenge and justice. She had risked everything, including Liam's life, to expose Richard. The X-rated tape was her weapon, and the murder footage, the true horror, was an unintended, yet ultimately revealing, consequence. The team searched the cabin. They found Richard's car hidden in a makeshift garage. Richard himself was gone. He had likely fled into the dense forest. Her climax and resolution, the manhunt for Richard Henderson, began. He was a desperate man, cornered, with nothing left to lose. He knew Sarah had betrayed him, and Liam knew his secret. Meanwhile, Sarah was brought back to the station. Miller confronted her with Liam's statement. Sarah broke down. Yes, it's true. I planned it. I couldn't live with it anymore. He ruined my life. He took everything from me. My childhood, my innocence. I tried to tell my mom, but she never believed me. I knew he had those videos. I found the camcorder years ago, hidden in his study. I copied the files. I knew he kept a backup of his slideshow on Liam's laptop, just in case. I swapped the file. I thought if it came out accidentally, it would be less suspicious. I just wanted him exposed for the abuse. I didn't know the murder video was on that specific file. I only saw the other videos, I swear. I just wanted him to pay. Her confession was a torrent of pain, fear, and a twisted sense of justice. She had been a victim, pushed to extreme measures. Hours later, Richard was apprehended, found hiding in a hunter's shack. Disheveled and defiant, he offered no resistance, his eyes cold and empty. The story of the Oakwood Estate wedding spread like wildfire. The perfect day, shattered by a secret, revealing a decade of abuse and a hidden murder. Richard Henderson was charged with the murder of Mark Jenkins, the abduction and assault of Liam, and multiple counts of sexual abuse against Sarah. The camcorder footage was irrefutable evidence. Sarah faced a difficult path. While she was a victim, Her actions in manipulating Liam and risking his life were not without consequence. The legal system would decide her fate regarding her involvement in the video's release. Liam, recovering from his ordeal, struggled with the betrayal, but also with a profound understanding of Sarah's suffering. Their future together was uncertain, forever tainted by the darkness that had erupted on their wedding day. The Oakwood estate, once a symbol of joyous beginnings, became a place whispered about, a reminder that even in the most beautiful settings, the ugliest truths can lie hidden, waiting for the moment to explode. Lessons learned and advice. This harrowing tale reminds us of the profound impact of secrets, especially those born from abuse and fear. Sarah's story highlights the silent suffering many endure, and the desperate measures they might take when all other avenues for justice feel closed. It underscores the importance of believing victims, of creating safe spaces for them to speak, and of the long-lasting trauma that can shape a person's life. For anyone enduring a similar situation, please know you are not alone. There are resources available to help. Reach out to trusted friends, family members, or professional organizations dedicated to supporting survivors of abuse. Your voice matters, and your safety is paramount. Never feel ashamed to seek help. To those around us, this story is a stark reminder to look beyond the surface, to listen with compassion, and to be vigilant for signs of distress in those we care about. Sometimes, the most desperate cries for help are silent. If this story has moved you, please consider sharing it. Your engagement helps us bring more important stories to light. Like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the complexities of crime and human nature. Thank you for watching.